trying to think of a pun for this, but I got nothing. If you think of something, post it in the comments. Hello and welcome back to another Gunpla review. Today we're taking a look at the BB Senshi SD Sazabi. Alright, and starting off as always with the articulation. The Mono Eye is technically movable, but it's just not the easiest thing to actually move. It's hard to pop this off to get in at it, but it can move if you want it to. Aside from that, the head is on a barbell, though because of the funnel racks, it's not a ton of movement there. It's kind of permanently looking down too. Decent side to side at least. The shoulders are on a front-facing ball joint, so they can move out, as well as a ball joint on that, so it's sort of a right angle bend of double ball joints there. It does mean you can get the arm surprisingly far across the chest for an SD. Aside from that, this piece up in the shoulder is also on a ball joint, so it has no trouble getting out of the way, though it can fall off if you're not careful. The arm itself is on a ball joint inside of there for a little bit of in and out wiggle, as well as a bicep rotation. There's a bend at the elbow for 45-ish degrees, and the hands, as always, are on a ball joint. Moving swiftly on from the shoulders before those parts fall off again, the waist is on a ball joint in here that can rock a little bit side to side, but it's mostly just a ball joint. Well, honestly, it's mostly just a swivel. These propellant tanks are ball jointed, as you just saw. The front skirts are actually ball jointed. Do have to separate them, but the fact they're ball jointed at all is impressive for an SD. The hips are on ball joints in there, but they're not the usual SD vertical ball joint. They're actually a proper hip joint, which is nice. And the ankles are ball jointed, though honestly, I mean, it's the Sazabi. You're not getting a ton of movement there. So kind of a brick, but it's a bulky suit that's an SD, so what do you expect? And moving on to accessories, let's start off as always with the sticker sheet and by extension, color correction. Quite a few here. You get the Mono Eye. This one's actually a forehead camera, though the Sazabi doesn't have that, so add it if you want, I guess. Aside from that, you get a Neozeon emblem for the shield. Two different ones for the front skirt. I went with the alternate because I already have this symbol on my high grade, and also it's metallic backing, so it would stand out weird against the matte red plastic, but that doesn't really matter. Aside from that, you get the toes on the Sazabi, and really doesn't want to focus on the stickers. The front vents down here, these are for the beam tomahawk, and these stripes are technically to go around the fuelant tanks, but it doesn't really matter. Now, aside from that, there's actually a decent amount of paint going into this. Like I said earlier, it's really hard to get this off, but the cockpit pod is actually in the head here. I did paint it red. Doesn't matter, you literally can't see it now, but it is in there. Aside from that, you gotta do the shoulder vents with black and yellow black trim on these, the gunmetal and yellow on the shoulder vents, or thrusters, side skirt ones, back skirt ones, the ones in the backpack. The ones in the leg down here, though thankfully they're actually part of the same piece that's here for the knee, so it's actually just the yellow that needs to be painted on those. Gray on this, and also the red in the center, the sort of mounting point for the hip pipes. That's part of the yellow plastic, so that needs to be painted, though. To be fair, you probably couldn't be able to tell either way. Aside from that, you still have to paint more on the accessories, so might as well get into those. First up, the beam rifle. Gotta paint the red power cables on that. That's not a big deal. Just a 3mm peg for the handle. It's perfectly fine in the hand. Aside from that, you get the shield, and the beam tomahawk actually does mount on it, which is nice. Come on. Pop that off real nice and easy. This is all one piece, so all the darker color in here is painted. Thankfully, you just have to paint the yellow right there. It's not too far off of the high-grade Sazabi, as long as you ignore these parts being part of the shield. It's not too bad. This is slightly worse than the Sazabi. because these aren't separated. This is all one piece, so aside from having to paint that little bit there, you have to paint these too. It does come with an effect part for it, which actually looks really nice, to be honest. It doesn't really want to go on right now. That would explain it. Wrong way. Come on. There we go. Looks good. Solid yellow instead of translucent, but hey, it's on the same runner as the other yellow, so I can't really complain there. Thankfully, it doesn't strip the paint when you put it on and off, so don't have to worry too much about that. And this can, kinda like the high grade, plug onto the arm. The thing is, the Sazabi shield is so big anyway that making this thing an SD kind of means that the shield's a little bit in the way. Finally, you do get some deployed funnels, which you literally just plug this into the back hole on here. If you pop this apart and remove the docked ones, you can just plug it in right there. And as for a quick size comparison, I figured I'd swap out those funnels just to get an idea of the height of those. Now, this is an SD, but it's also the Sazabi. This thing is actually really big for an SD. I mean, not Kshatriya big, but it's the Sazabi, it's chunky. So, to wrap this review up, this is a good kit. I mean, there's really not much to say. You have to paint a few smaller details, but I mean, it's an SD, what do you expect? But it's really good for that. Seam lines are excellent, the part separation's really good for an SD. I mean, BB Senshi has pretty good color separation anyway, but even for BB Senshi, all you have to paint on this is pretty much just verniers. That's nothing. It literally took me like 2 hours to do this whole thing. And I'd say if you don't really care about the verniers, this would be a great first kit for someone. Also, side note, I don't know how well it actually showed up in the review, but this does actually have the two-tone that the Sazabi is supposed to. The only part of it that's missing is the horns on the head are supposed to be the darker red, but honestly, leaving it all bright red for the SD, it works, so I'm not even going to complain about that. I love this thing, and I really gotta find space on my shelves for it. And that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe and hit the bell to be alerted for future reviews. Come chill in the Discord. Follow me on Twitter, if that's even still around. And consider supporting me on Patreon, so I can keep bringing you videos like this. And, as always, until next time, happy building.